Hello, hello, new Wahoos.
Welcome to UVA.
Welcome to UVA.
Welcome, new Who's.
There's so much to be excited about. I don't even know where to start. I would say be excited about the people. I can guarantee you, during your time at UVA, you will make lifelong friends and you will be so grateful for them so often.
I can still remember times where my sorority sisters and my roommates and I went to the lawn to hear a cappella groups. The Hullabahoos or Virginia Gentlemen, lighting of the lawn, streaking the lawn, which I never did, as far as I know, but it's always a great time.
There's so many clubs and opportunities that you can take part in that you may not have ever even considered taking a part in. It's just a beautiful place to spend 4 years.
My favorite thing about the university has definitely been the way that it challenges you. When I was a high school student looking at where to go to school, Virginia stood out to me because it had that academic and athletic rigor.
UVA has such a special place in my heart for really helping me develop as an individual. It really provided me with great opportunities to get outside of myself and support others.
You're going to be surrounded by really smart people who are going to push you socially and intellectually. I guarantee you the person that you come in as will not be the person you leave 4 years later.
Being able to spend time together at ring ceremonies, spend time singing the good old song at a football game are really times where you feel connected, not only as fellow Wahoos, but as a family. It's like an extended family, essentially.
And so you as an incoming first year have something to look forward to in the alumni network. That is something that has constantly blown my mind of just how willing other Virginia alums have been willing to help me along my journey.
It's undeniable that the combination of education that I was able to receive and the kind of community that you get to be a part of once you graduate it's unparalleled in terms of just being able to be successful in whatever you want to do.
I have been on the streets of Berlin as well as the corner of Midtown Manhattan, and anytime I see a UVA alumni, I know I immediately have a friend. They rush up to me, they are so excited. I know that they're always in my corner and they're rooting for the best in me, whether I've met them once or 100 different times. I think this is the best part of joining the UVA community, is knowing that for the rest of your life you will be part of a family of Wahoos that will be cheering you on.
When you're going to the University of Virginia, you're not just getting that 4 years of experience, you're getting a lifetime of experience, and I wouldn't trade anything for any of that in the world.
If I could give one piece of advice to my first year self, it would be just say yes, do the thing, have fun, learn from it, keep moving.
A piece of advice to incoming students would be to get to know your professors.
My one piece of advice, make long-standing connections.
Take advantage of every opportunity that arises at UVA, every one-off club that you didn't think you'd explore, every leadership opportunity that might come your way. Just think about what can be learned from those lessons and get comfortable, because it's really when you grow the most.
It would be not to be afraid to go out of my comfort zone. That could be socially, that could be academically, but for me, some of my favorite classes were outside of my major. Even my major was different. I think I changed my major 3 times before I landed with Chinese. So you might be thinking right now, sitting here while you make your decision of where to go, unsure of exactly what you want to do, or maybe you really know what you want to do. Doesn't matter. No matter when you enter the university, I would really encourage you to take classes that are outside your comfort zone. Try different activities that you've never tried before, because it is this wonderful safe space where you can learn and grow and just discover maybe there's a whole nother side of you that you didn't even know you had.
So just remember, this is your time. Enjoy it and make those memories.
There's no better place to do those things than the University of Virginia. So yeah, be excited about all that. Be excited about everything.
Welcome to the UVA family. Go Who's.
Good luck, and go Who's.
We can't wait to meet you. We can't wait to welcome you on grounds. Wahoo wah, and welcome to our family.
Wahoo wah and welcome. My name is Joshua Stewart. I'm with the Office of Engagement's UVA Clubs team, as well as a UVA alum. So go Who's. Congratulations on your admission to the University of Virginia. And thank you for joining today's virtual admitted students celebration. This event is brought to you in partnership with the Office of Admission. A few housekeeping items to begin. The session is being recorded and will be sent to all session registrants a few days following tonight's program. Closed captioning is also available at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions throughout today's discussion, type them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Our behind-the-scenes staff will be responding to your questions throughout the program. If you have specific admissions questions, please visit the Office of Admissions website. A link will be dropped in the chat. On behalf of UVA Clubs, I'd like to offer a warm Wahoo welcome to our new Who's. Over the course of tonight, you'll hear us refer to the word clubs in two different ways. There is a more traditional way, as in student activities, but you'll also hear about our UVA clubs, which are our global network of alumni, family, and friends. Our regional clubs offer many programs throughout the year that allow you to connect locally with UVA, just like the one here tonight. We hope you take some time to visit our website to learn more about what your local club is going on, or drop a link in the chat now for more information. I also want to let you know that many of our local clubs will be sponsoring in-person admitted student celebrations in the next few weeks, but stay tuned to hear more about that later. Today's program will feature a discussion with our three panelists about their experiences at UVA. This discussion will be followed by a Q&A with our panelists, answering some of the questions you submitted when you registered. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to our silent moderators from the Office of Admissions, who are busy behind the scenes answering questions as they come in through the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our guests to join me. Panelists, you may turn on your cameras. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll call on you, and if you can do a quick introduction of yourself, name, hometown, where you're currently at in the world, your major, and current occupation. Colin, I'll start with you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Colin Watts, and as you can see in my, name up here, I am a 2019 grad from UVA. I grew up in Winchester, Virginia, which is a small town in Northwest Virginia, about 2 hours from Charlottesville. Grew up a massive UVA fan. Both of my parents went to UVA. My older sister went to UVA. So I was kind of brainwashed from a very early age to end up in Charlottesville. And I did, which is very, very exciting, where I studied Batten, so the Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy. I studied that undergrad along with music. And then I did a one-year master's program in my fourth year at UVA in commerce through the McIntire School of Commerce. And then now I find myself up in Boston, where it is slightly warmer today. The last call we had like this, it was like 35 degrees, but today is a beautiful 70-degree day. I work at Wayfair, which is an e-commerce company, kind of like Amazon, but focused mostly on home goods as a data analyst. I also run the social media pages for a startup here in Boston, and I'm also the lead singer of a band that travels around New England on the weekends. So a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff that I'll talk about how it all started at UVA, but I'll pass it on to whoever Josh decides to pass it on to.
Thank you, Colin. Pass it on to Ava.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here with you all today. My name is Ava Purcell. I'm a current fourth-year student at the University of Virginia, and my major is actually within the education school. I'm studying youth and social innovation, which is a bit of education policy and youth development. I've loved it. I'm kind of local. I'm from Fredericksburg, Virginia, so about an hour or so outside of Charlottesville. And I'm also pursuing an accelerated master's degree in the Batten School of Public Policy. So we're working on that right now. And I will also be working on it next year. So I love UVA so much. I'm a double who, and very excited to answer all the questions that you all have.
Thank you, Ava. And Sanford.
Hello, everyone. First, congratulations and thank you for being here. Sanford Williams from Northern New Jersey originally, New York City area. I currently live in Pasadena, California, so a long way away from New York. I'm an attorney by trade, went to UVA Law School, and currently I work at the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, in the chairwoman's office remotely from Pasadena, and I teach at UCLA Law School, which is pretty cool. So thank you for being here and I look forward to the conversation.
Fantastic. So let's start by going around and have each of you describe your time at UVA. And what activities you're involved in, and overall, what made that UVA experience meaningful. Colin, let's have you start.
It's not fair to start with me. It's not fair. It's hard to encapsulate the UVA experience over a few words. So I guess first I'll start with what activities I was involved with at school. So when I got to UVA, once again, I knew I was a big UVA sports fan growing up. I knew that I loved music. I started looking in both of those directions for, the types of activities I wanted to get involved in. So in my first week at school, I auditioned for this a cappella group called the Hullabahoos, which is an all-male a cappella group on grounds, and got in. And that then was one of my favorite parts of the following 4 years. I also auditioned for the University Singers, which is UVA's flagship choral ensemble. I think that's what Professor Sloan likes to call it. So I was a part of that for my 4 years at UVA as well. So those were the big things. But one of the great things about UVA that I guess this is kind of transitioning into what made it meaningful is if you're passionate about something, there is an opportunity for you to pursue it, right? Yes, those two music groups that I was a part of were kind of my mainstays, but over my 4 years, I was able to get involved in so many different things like student leadership. I was on my dorm council my first year, planned some really fun events through that, did some volunteering at UVA hospitals, was able to, I'm trying to remember, was able to be part of the Baton School social committee and plan our like social policy ball is what they called it. It was basically like prom for people. I don't know, Ava, if you've had that yet this year. It's a grand old time. So there's all sorts of things at UVA. If you're passionate about it, you can get involved. And I think that's what made my UVA experience meaningful. And of course, all the people that you meet through those activities as well. I would say that's probably the biggest thing, those relationships. I just visited Charlottesville this past weekend and saw a lot of my old friends, and it makes you realize that yes, being a part of those organizations is special, but it's mostly because of the people you do it with. Lots of smart and fun people. Passing on.
Fantastic. Thank you, Colin. I'm actually going to come back to you in a little bit, but Ava, next.
Yeah, so I would say, looking back at my time as a fourth year, I've very much enjoyed getting to know my peers within my cohort academically. So I have been helping with our team's executive board, which is very exciting for the YSI major. And we do some similar things. We plan an ed school ball. We advocate for policy changes within our major, which has been a very big staple for my experience, working with supervisors and working with those in the academic school on different changes we can make for our policy to be more equitable for students. And I've loved doing that because it is sort of that intersection with policy and youth work, which has been exciting. I've additionally been involved with Greek life organizations and doing philanthropic work with them, which has been great, and also a great way to meet people as well. And also to sort of bounce off of what Colin mentioned, I would say I know that we have a very robust career fair that starts, there's spring and fall, and you can really join a lot of different opportunities and meet a lot of people through that, just because we do have so many groups, hundreds of student organizations, which is very exciting. And, I would say going into it, it might be a little easy to get overwhelmed with all the opportunities that you have. So I would say, it's great to sort of settle in and really find your niche and what you're interested in and go from there, because there's bound to be a club that is working with something that you might be interested in.
Awesome. Thank you, Ava. Sanford, anything to add?
Oh yeah, quite a bit probably, actually. So my experience is probably a little bit different since I was in law school, not undergrad, and I had a family. So my wife, Anastasia, was in medical school at UVA, graduated in 1998. We had two small children, Kiara and Sanford like me, who were with us then. So I spent a lot of time watching Disney and Nickelodeon and going to law school class, of course, and taking the kids all around grounds. I mean, one thing I loved as a law school student having kids was that we can go to everything for free. We went to lacrosse games and soccer games and basketball games, and it was just a grand old time for me, which is different than the typical law school student experience, but it was great. And as a grad student, I felt part of the UVA family, which is something that was unique. Now, I should ask caveat that, like Colin, I have a UVA family. I won't go through every single degree, but my wife is a med school graduate. My daughter, Kiara, is a UVA undergrad 2011 graduate and a 2015 law school graduate. My son, Sanford, is a 2013 undergraduate, Hullabaloo also. My daughter-in-law, Anne, is a 2014 graduate and a 2018 medical school graduate. My youngest daughter, Nia, is a 2021 graduate. And I can say that in their times, and as a parent, and we'll get to that in a second, one of the things they loved to do was their activities. I think they remember that most on grounds, and whether it was Sanford and the Hullabahoos and being a Pitch Perfect, which he talks about every day, still, that he was in Pitch Perfect, to my daughter Nia, who's in the Silhouettes, to my daughter Kiara, who works in the football office, was a competitive cheerleader. Like Colin and Ava both alluded to, there's a plethora of activities to get involved in, and that makes UVA special. So that's just a little bit about some of my activities, and I could go on and on, but I'll give it back to Josh.
Perfect. I just want to echo what all three of our panelists said is, whether or not you find a club, UVA makes it very easy to pursue a niche of your own. Colin, I'm going to turn it back to you. Can you go into a little bit about your education major process, and how did you end up being able to get your master's your fourth year? Can you talk about that and what that process was like? Not if it was hard or easy, but sort of how you went about that path.
It's a very roundabout process for sure. Did not have a plan going into school to study any of those things. I'm sure that many folks on the call probably feel the same way. When I was your age, I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I still don't. But then it's like, oh, you need to pick your major. You need to have this path that you're going to go down. I had none of that. I knew that I wanted to go to UVA. I knew that there were a lot of great programs that I could get involved with eventually. So I went in with an open mind and took classes really in a ton of different areas. I took an economics course my first semester. I took a music course my first semester. I took a class on the Viking world my first semester. Don't ask me. It was cool though. Taking psychology classes. So you take classes all across the map. And then I figured out what I really liked from the classes I took was I took a public policy course and I took a music course. I loved them both. Looked at the pathway for each. The Batten School is a 2-year program for undergrads, and I applied for that in my first year just through having a bunch of AP credits coming in. So I was able to do that during my second and third year and also pursued that music degree in my second and third year as well. I did kind of have the plan because I knew I was going to graduate early. I kind of had in the back of my mind, I don't want to leave UVA after 3 years. I love this place. So I looked into potential 1-year master's programs and I thought, okay, I have some of these kind of soft skills related to policy and music, maybe get some hard skills. So that's why I did that 1-year master's in commerce with a focus in data analytics. And so that's what I'm doing today. But once again, even now, with all those degrees, a lot of different types of cool classes. I still don't know what I want to do with my life, but I know that like having that UVA name on your degree opens a lot of doors. So I know that I'm not going to be sticking in this field, but
no, fantastic.
That's up for success. Yeah.
Fantastic answer. I think that also shines a little light on your path is unknown, and it varies throughout every year at UVA. So do not feel the need to come in with an exact honed in major. I think all of our panelists can attest to that. So thank you, Colin, for answering and sharing. So now let's move on to this transition for parents and for the students on the call. We'll start from the student perspective. So Ava, what was your transition like from high school to college, and how did it feel at UVA?
That's a great question. And I will say it's going to be different for everyone. So the most important thing is do not compare your transition experience with anyone else's, whether it be a roommate or a peer. But for me personally, I mean, I have a very close-knit family. I'm very lucky. So it was difficult. I wasn't very far from home, only about an hour and a half. But, adjusting to like going to the dining halls and doing everything on my own was very different, I would say. And even not having that family to come back to at the end of the day and talk about your day with. And of course, you're going to have roommates, you're going to have friends, but it is a different dynamic. So I think adjusting to that was difficult, but I will say throughout the process, I feel that I've actually gotten even closer to my mother and sisters. I call them somewhat frequently. And I think it's nice to feel like, I'm an adult doing adult things and I can still have that connection with my family, even though, we're not in the same physical location, but it does take a while. I don't think I was fully adjusted until probably the end of my first year. And that is when COVID hit. So then, I kind of had to do that process over again, coming back to school. And it is different for everyone, but it's not something to be scared of, I would say. And a lot of times, you might find it'll even strengthen your relationship, parent and child wise for sure.
Thank you, Ava. Colin?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough transition. I mean, up to this point in my life, that was definitely the biggest transition I had. And coming from a small town, Winchester, knowing I wanted to go to UVA, it was interesting. You grow up kind of maybe a lot of you on the call can attest to this, is kind of being a big fish in a small pond, right? You're used to, succeeding, right? You grow up, you do well academically, you do well socially, you do well in your extracurriculars, and that's why you get into UVA. And then you show up to UVA and everyone else is just like that as well. They're all super successful, super smart people. And so you start to have a little bit of imposter syndrome. You're like, oh snap, do I deserve to be here? Do I fit in? What is my identity even? You're going from a place that you're so close with your family potentially, or you built your community in high school, and then you kind of have to build this new community and new identity. So yeah, it's tough. It was tough for me, and I know it's tough for a lot of people, but I want to second what Ava said, and not comparing your experience to anyone else, because you will have a different one from your roommate, from your hallmate, from your other friends from home that went to UVA. So I guess the big advice that I would have for an incoming first year, right, is to say yes. I think someone said that in the video as well. It's one of my favorite phrases in life, is just to say yes to experiences, put yourself out there, because right away you're not going to know what your new identity and community is going to be, but you can only find out by saying yes when things come your way. So that'd be my biggest advice.
Love that. And Sanford, also from the student angle, but also can you shed light to what it's like, this transition being a parent?
Yeah, it was very interesting. Funny, I tell people that when I was in undergrad, my parents dropped me off at school. They said, see you later. And they came back 4 years later, and that was it. When my children started in 2007, the first one, very, very different. Parents are definitely more involved. One thing I can say, having had children go to different colleges and having talked to other parents, UVA is special as a parent because one, is a supportive environment. The administration really, really cares and goes out of their way to make sure parents are included and they're supportive of your students. Secondly, one thing I love, and I've seen this now, through 3 kids and your daughter-in-law and lots of other folks, like these 2 gentlemen on the screen and Ava soon as well, it prepares you for life. It lets students understand what it means to take control of things and be in control of activities, from the self-governance to the clubs you can start. I remember as a parent, at some point during one of my kids' tenure, they started a Quidditch club. Who does that? But that's something that students liked. So the ability to have self-governance helps you for life going forward. People often tell me that UVA grads, when they get out into the workforce or whatever they do after their tenure at UVA, they're easily identifiable because they take control, they're proactive, and they're comfortable being leaders, which is important going forward. There's also lots of ways for parents to stay engaged, which is great. There's a Parents Fund, the UVA Clubs. I was part of the OAAA, Office of African American Affairs Parents Group, and the University Parents Group. And I was also part of Hullabaloo Parents, Silhouettes Parents. Whatever my kids did, I was part of that. My son was in a fraternity, and I was part of the fraternity parents. But there's ways to stay involved and engaged. And speaking of staying involved and engaged, something else that we do, I think, but it's different for this generation, so to speak, is that they're definitely more engaged. And I encourage you to stay involved and engaged in your children's lives. Stay there, be involved, know what's going on. However, I caution you to not be too much of a helicopter parent, from my perspective, or guardian. So give them space to grow. So definitely stay engaged and help them because you have experience and wisdom they need, but give them space to grow because this is a time for them to grow. And lastly, something that I think Colin alluded to, you'll go through a lot, at school. It's not easy. You find lots of people who are excellent there. You're excellent. Everyone here is excellent. There's lots of excellence there, and you will encounter roadblocks, maybe more than you ever had in your life. So as parents, don't be dismayed by that. That's part of life. When students encourage or encounter things, encourage them and encourage them to get help. There's lots of help on grounds to help them through whatever they're going through, whether it's academic, socially, or otherwise. So be prepared to help them and encourage them and get ready for the ride of your life, because it was a wonderful experience for me as a grad student, for me as a parent, 5 times over, how many times my kids graduated, and it's a great place to be.
Thank you all. And I'll chime in. I was a transfer student to UVA. So transferring in after 2 years at a small private liberal arts college with 1,100 students in totality, my one piece of advice is to be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. Might not happen in the first month. But you will find your group of people. You will find your lifelong friends. You will make connections with professors, and you'll find your path. So stick with it. And I'm saying that as a transfer student, it was, there were some difficult times coming to UVA after my identity had already been established elsewhere. And so coming in, I found my kin, if you will, joining the Hullabahoos as well, and music ensemble, being a part of transfer student peer advisory, and just, again, finding my niche. So be patient, take your time, and just keep on moving. And I promise you will find your lifelong friends. So Abe, I'm gonna turn it over to you now to give a little insight of what it's like as a current student. So you're still in the thick of things, obviously. But what are your favorite academic experiences? What have they been? And sort of, can you describe the academic sort of curriculum at UVA?
Yeah, of course. And I know Colin mentioned this a little bit. I think sometimes at UVA, some people might think, there is like that competitive nature, and, obviously all the students who are here, very accomplished, very smart individuals. But I've been very lucky. I feel like I have worked on a lot of like teamwork projects, group work projects. And it's great getting to know other people's working styles and environments. And I think that's very helpful for career potentials, working with others. And I've had the opportunity to work on some real world issues with real world clients, which has been exciting. So through my undergraduate major with youth and social innovation, we have a capstone research project. I'm still working on it. So I'll be finishing that up, but it's year long, and we're partnered with a real life client, and we are helping them solve an education policy problem for their specific organization. And it's been very eye-opening to be able to use my classroom skills and apply that to, again, those real world projects and research, and communicating and coordinating with the client, outside of the university has been very helpful for my academic growth and personal growth. And we've also been thrown into the thick of it for my graduate program. We have a 48-hour policy project for the Baton Masters, and you spend 48 hours working on a policy problem and writing a paper. And it's a lot of community building with my cohort. We stayed up almost all night in Garrett halls together working on our projects. And it taught us some real life lessons about, turnarounds in the real world and trying to get some good work out in a short amount of time. So I think what UVA really does best in a variety of majors is prepares you for that real world experience in a bunch of different ways. And I think it's very exciting and a great opportunity that we offer.
Awesome. Thank you, Ava. Colin, you want to speak about your experience a little bit?
Ava, you're reminding me of my late nights in Garrett Hall as well. Too many of them, but all good ones. Academic experiences. I mean, my favorite part about UVA was the professors. They're such smart people, but also such welcoming people. I think of some of my favorite classes, like that Viking World class I talked about before, with a 9-person seminar where we got very, very close to the professor, going out to lunch and things like that. But there are just so many different cool classes. In the Baton School alone, the reason why I chose the Baton School is because it had a wide-ranging curriculum. There are economics courses, statistics courses, ethics courses, traditional policy courses as well. So having that wide breadth of classes and having subject matter experts in each, having some classes where the professor is a former congressman, right? Like, you just don't find academic experiences like that everywhere. So I would say that that's my favorite part of the academic experience at UVA. Additionally, there are just so many opportunities to pursue, pursue niche things that you're interested in. Like I said, that Viking class, I know one of the most popular classes at UVA is this Dracula course. I didn't take it myself. I think the waiting list is like hundreds of people. I studied abroad at Oxford, where I was able to take some really unique European Union focused courses related to policy. So, there are just all these sorts of wide range of courses that you can take. And I think that's my favorite part about the academic experience. And then, like Ava said, doing some real world stuff as well, especially in the Baton School. I had some similar projects working with clients that were very, very helpful in preparing for the real world.
Awesome. Love hearing about the real life application in the classroom. So we're going to wrap up the Q&A portion. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We're going to shift gears a little and answer some of the questions that came in during registration. We had so many great questions, and unfortunately, we're not going to have time to address them all tonight. But our colleagues will drop links in the chat about orientation and housing. And at the end of the presentation, we'll provide resources and lists of other opportunities to connect with UVA and ask those questions. And our behind the scene moderators are still answering your questions live through the Q&A box below. So thank you again to our silent moderators for the great work they're doing responding to your questions throughout the program. So clubs and activities were by far the most popular topic in the pre-submitted questions. UVA has over 1,000 clubs on campus that just cover about any interest. Like we talked about, you can create anything. So we'll drop a link in the chat about student affairs activities, where you can find a list of the clubs and more information. All right, so here is our pre-submitted Q&A questions. Are we ready? All right, so lots of people want to know about Greek life on grounds. So do you have any experience with this? Ava, I know you said it earlier, so I'm going to turn to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that deciding if you want to go into Greek life doesn't mean that it's a traditional experience you might see elsewhere, because UVA offers a lot of professional fraternities and additionally multicultural Greek life organizations. So I think that there's a wide variety. And I think you'll find that some people might feel pressure to join because there's a lot of students, but in reality, I think numbers more around 20 or 30%. So, you know, either way, I know people who are in it, who are not in it, and everyone has amazing friend groups. So there shouldn't be any pressure in that respect. I think if you decide that you want to rush, it's a different experience for everyone. I know that might not be super helpful, but it's another one of those aspects where you can't compare yourself to others in that situation. But it's cliche. I think people do end up going to different areas where they do fit well. And it is a great opportunity to find friends. I'm currently living in a house with 9 other girls, and I love them all. They are great. And, you know, I met them through my sorority, and it's been a great experience my 4th year to really deepen those connections. So I think that it is a great way to go. And you can also engage in a lot of philanthropic opportunities, which I think is really special to some of these organizations. So that's been a really big aspect of my experience that I've enjoyed. But again, you know, if you have friends that are in them, you can always attend, you know, their philanthropic events. So it's really not a localized thing to just one specific individual. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities to get involved with Greek life if you're in it or not, and if you have that interest.
Awesome answer. Thank you. Colin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, so I wasn't in Greek life myself. My little sister is currently in a sorority at UVA. My dad was in a fraternity at UVA. So, you know, I actually did do fraternity rush my first year. And then partway through, I kind of realized I don't think this is for me. And I dropped out. And, you know, I think that if I continued on, I would have had great experiences. But I also know that I was able to, like Ava said, build really strong relationships outside of Greek life. So either way, don't worry too much about it. One thing I wanted to note is that if you're banking on Greek life becoming your friend group, just wanted to let you know that rush doesn't happen until the spring semester. So you'll get to school in August, and then you'll finish your first semester, and then I think Greek rush starts in January/February for sororities and fraternities respectively. So like I said earlier, when you first get to UVA, I would recommend saying yes. There will be an activities fair during your very first week. Go to that activities fair, sign up for all of those activities and other communities that you could potentially be a part of, because once again, Greek life, Greek rush does not start until the spring. So, and even for folks that I know that were in fraternities, you know, several of the guys I was with in Hull who's were also in fraternities, and I know that they valued both of those experiences. So I'd recommend diversifying your friend groups, whether you join a fraternity or not.
Perfect. Sanford, do you have anything to add?
Yep, really quick. My son and daughter-in-law both pledged a fraternity and sorority, both had great times. My 2 daughters did not pledge, all had a great time. So like Colin, they both mentioned, if you want to do it, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm gonna answer another question I saw in the chat really quick. I saw a question about medical school. My son and daughter-in-law both went to UVA. My daughter-in-law went to UVA Medical School. My son went to Wake Forest Medical School. There's excellent training there. And there's a hospital and UVA Medical School there. So if you're interested, the Dean of Education at the medical school is Meg Keeley. She's a double who. Go talk to her. She's a great person to talk to about what you need to do as an undergrad to get to med school, and tell her, that I sent you. But great training for medical school there, in case for whoever asked that question. So just wanted to answer that. So that's all I got.
No, thank you. So Colin brought up activities fair, and I brought up earlier that there are over 1,000 clubs. So activities fair happens literally, what is it, the second day, first day, third day, basically in your first days when you reach grounds. Colin, do you want to go over that process, what it feels like? Ava, you could describe what it's like for you, what it was like for you as well.
Organized chaos, my friends, organized chaos. So, right, you moved into your dorm room, you're just tacking those string lights on the wall like every first year student seems to do. And then you see that there's this 4-hour-long event called the activities fair the day before classes start. Go to the activities fair. It is a sight to see, honestly. After attending it my first year and then being at some of the booths with different organizations my second through fourth years, it's a great opportunity to meet people, to get on email lists for tons of different organizations that you may or may not be interested in. I remember getting on like the table tennis club email list my first year. Went to maybe like 2 events my entire 4 years, but I stayed on that list. There are so many different types of events there. So you go to the lawn. If you haven't been to Charlottesville, lawn is large and it's pretty much full of different folks from different organizations, letting you know what there is to offer, from the ski and snowboard club to the outdoors club to the Quidditch club to different a cappella groups, different musical opportunities. There's an orchestra. It's just all of these different organizations that want to be your friend. They want you to come up and talk to them. So do it and say yes when they ask for your email address so you can hear more information.
Yeah, definitely. And to add on to that a little bit, I think going into it, I was a little overwhelmed. It's exciting. You can get a lot of cool free stuff and meet a lot of cool people. Every club has somebody that is super passionate, which I think is really special about UVA. Like, you will not find a club where people are just kind of free riding. Like, everyone is super involved. And I think coming from a high school experience where a lot of students were very involved, it's a very natural follow-up to, want to embed yourself at UVA and find something you're passionate about. And, like Colin said, try different things out, go to a couple of those first meetings, but also don't stress if you don't find a club until maybe the next semester, next year. I found myself joining clubs that my friends were in, and having like a buddy to go with, I think really helped me get involved because I was a shy first year. So I think, you can find these experiences throughout any of your years at UVA. And so just being patient and trying a bunch of different things out is super important.
Is that for anything to add from the parent angle when either Sanford or Nia described the activities fair and all the things they signed up for?
Yeah, I'd say organized chaos for sure. And I would caution folks, though, that my first daughter, Kiara, who was first year in 2007, I think like not 16, oh my gosh, I feel old, 16 years later, is still getting emails from some of those clubs. So you may still be getting emails 16 years later, but it definitely is a great way to meet folks and to find your niche and do what you need to do. So I encourage you, like Colin said, say yes, go for it, and enjoy it.
Fantastic. I want to get towards the professor side of things. Colin, you mentioned earlier about your professors. I know I love the professors. They are super supportive, and they're super advocates for students, especially those who are passionate about what they want to do. So did you find yourself engaging much with your professors outside of class? And what opportunities are there to interact with faculty on grounds? Ava, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think first year it might be a little intimidating to do so because, these are definitely renowned professors and academics, but they want to meet students, they want to help you. And I have found some of my either internship opportunities or right now, like I'm grading for a class, and you can also be a teacher's assistant. And what really helps is, going to the office hours, communicating, and especially in like very large classes, I think that can be really helpful to develop that personal connection. But they love to talk. They love to talk to students. and they love for people to fill their office hours. So I think establishing those connections, putting a face to a name in the larger classes, and it could open up a lot of doors and opportunities for the future years. So it's definitely worthwhile. And these are connections that you can have past your time at UVA, which I think is really special as well.
Colin?
Honestly, that answer encapsulated pretty much everything I was going to say as well. These professors are at the school for a reason because they love being around the energy of students, being around the energy of academia. So, I would, once again, it gets a little bit easier once you get maybe in your later years when you're maybe in smaller classes, but don't be afraid to attend office hours. Get to know your TAs, your teaching assistants for the larger courses that you're in your first year. I remember my first year, I had a teaching assistant that I was actually in one of the other a cappella groups at UVA called the Virginia Gentlemen. And we got really, really tight. And he wrote one of my recommendation letters then for the Baton School. So, you can build these relationships. Another cool program that I wanted to speak about is the Take Your Professor to Lunch program, where if you do build up a relationship with a teacher, or you just want to get to know them a little bit more, you can ask them out. It's a little bit intimidating, like asking someone out on a date, but you can go and say, hey, you want to go to Roots on the corner and grab a salad with me? And it's actually on UVA. You can get I think it's like a UVA card of some sort that you can just swipe instead of using your own. And you can get non-dining hall food, which is big if you are tired of the dining halls after eating them for months on end. But I'd recommend doing so, right? I got really close with the professor who led the Oxford program that I did over the summer. And so we would get lunch. We got lunch a few times during my fourth year. Got really close with the professor of the choir at UVA. Saw him this past weekend, and he is as effervescent as ever. Yeah, I'll pass it on to Sanford if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I'd add, definitely take your professor out to lunch. And if it's kind of intimidating, get a few students and go out together. Maybe 3 students get together, 4 students take the professor out. As a professor now, I really enjoyed interacting with students. And one thing I can say, there are 2 professors specifically that come to mind. Lisa Spidell, who teaches gender studies, who taught all 3 of my children, and is a family friend now. And then A.D. Carson, who's recently named a tenured professor. He teaches a course in rap. My daughter Nia took him for a rap lab, and as she's pursuing her singing career, he's been incredible in terms of giving her advice on navigating the industry and just about life. So my children have all found lifelong friends, I think, through their professors, which sounds kind of different than a lot of other schools, but it's very useful. So I think the advice you both gave was great. Get to know your professors, and as a practical matter, you're going to need recommendations going forward. So even if you're kind of not sure about that, think about that. You need recommendations. You're going to make some connections.
Absolutely. Last thing I'll add is, depending on what student activities you join, there may be a faculty advisor for those. So definitely feel free to get close. Same thing. Develop those relationships, cultivate those relationships, and they really care about you and want to see you succeed. The only reason why I'm here today, moderating this event before you, is a faculty advisor. I did 3rd-year council and 4th-year trustees, and the faculty advisor for 4th-year trustees walked into the place of work I was working at after I graduated and said, hey, there's a job opening I think you'd be perfect for. And 4 years later, here I am. So I show that it truly does work when you cultivate those relationships. So now a lot of people, let's move to some fun stuff. We have some questions about food. I know Colin brought up cafeteria, not cafeteria, but on grounds food versus off grounds food. What is your favorite place to eat on grounds and off grounds? Ava, I'll start with you since you have a fresh perspective.
Yeah, good question. I would say that was a part of the transition too for me coming to UVA, adjusting to the dining halls. I'm a little bit of a picky eater, so it wasn't my favorite place, but I will say I'm pretty sure all of the dining options do come with meal swipes that you can do. So you can actually go to different cafes on grounds and try those out, which those are my favorite. So I would go before class. A lot of them are in the academic buildings actually. And I really enjoyed those. I really like West Range. They have a really good barbecue pulled pork. I like their fries. So I frequented West Range during my meal plan days. And I would say off grounds, I mean, Charlottesville, the different restaurants that they have in the downtown mall and outside of that are renowned. I really like the local. It's a bit farther out, so you might have to catch a ride there. But it's delicious. It's near the downtown mall. So that would be my recommendation.
Fantastic. Colin, can you answer that question and break down? We've used some UVA lingo throughout this program that you will all learn if you choose to attend. What is the corner and what food can you get on the corner?
Great questions, Josh. I was just there and got the look of the new corner. There are some new restaurants popping up there that have replaced some old favorites, single tier. But the corner. So if you've been to Charlottesville, or I guess if you haven't, that's the point of me answering this question. You have your academic, you have the grounds, right? You have the rotunda, you have the lawn, you have a lot of the academic buildings in that area. If you cross the street, Main Street, right? Yeah, that's Main Street. Also University Ave, same thing. Yeah, it's all the same thing. So if you cross that street, just across from the rotunda, you will find a strip of restaurants, local stores. Gosh, what else is on the corner? Basically, it's kind of the life of UVA. If you're an upperclassman, especially, a lot of upperclassmen live near the corner. There's a lot of houses and apartment buildings near that area, so you'll get to know it very, very, very well. In terms of the dining options you have on the corner, there is so much. My favorite place on the corner is Roots Natural Kitchen, which is the salad place that is incredible. Of course, I had to have that this past weekend when I visited. There's also Bodo's Bagels, which is another classic for Saturday mornings to grab your bagel and orange juice in a little like sippy cup. It's great. Let's see, what else is there on the corner? I mean, there's the favorites, Boylan Heights and Trinity Irish Pub for a good sit down opportunity. Yeah, there's now a Chipotle, which was simply not there when I was there. So there's now Chipotle. There's some old classics, the Virginian. It's all good. Honestly, the food on the corner, there's enough there to keep you occupied for a whole semester. I probably spent too much money on all of those during my 4 years, but it's worth it.
Thank you, Ava and Colin. Sanford, I have a last question for you. Came in through the Q&A, and we can touch on it if we can all be a little quick. But I want to start with you, Sanford. Can you talk about the Charlottesville community from a parent perspective, and then also as a student's perspective, and just talk about your feeling about it and how you can, again, flourish within the Charlottesville community as well as the UVA community?
Definitely. First, food question. Me, I love Bodo's. When I was a student, we didn't have much money, but Bodo's was something the whole family could eat. So I'm kind of partial to Bodo's. That's my food question. But back to a serious one, because we know a lot of folks don't know what Charlottesville is like, and a lot of folks' perception of it is gleaned by one incident they've heard of. It was great as a student because UVA community is awesome, but the Charlottesville community is very welcoming and supportive. Lots of students live off grounds after the first year, and as a student and a parent, you want your students to be comfortable. And as a student, when I had children, and then as a parent, when I had 3 children there, they all lived in places off grounds where they were comfortable. The Charlottesville community is special. There is a nice special nexus and connection between the community, and I've seen as the years have gone on, the university has made a special effort to connect the community to UVA because we're all one. So I would definitely encourage folks as students, as parents, to get involved with the Charlottesville community, get engaged with it. Look up on the internet, there's some of the things that are going on in town. From going to pick apples to visiting Monticello, there are tons of things to do there. But most importantly, the community is one that is very welcoming, and there's a great relationship between the community and between the students on grounds and the staff on grounds. So I would say that it's a great place to be. I went to another school undergrad, and I can say that the relationship wasn't as tight between Ithaca, where I went to, and Cornell, where I went to school. And again, in Charlottesville, it has changed over the years, but I definitely can see a huge, vast improvement in the relationship between Charlottesville and the University of Virginia. So I would say it's a great place to be, no matter who you are, and I'd encourage you to go to UVA in part because of that.
Awesome. Ava, I saw a lot of nods. Do you want to speak about your experience as a student, current student?
Yeah, of course. I was very lucky to have a job actually outside of the UVA bubble. So I worked at Wegmans grocery markets. And I did it in high school and I was able to transfer to this one. And having that connection, even through the grocery line, talking to people in the community. And, when they had asked if I was a student, communicating with them about my experience. And like Sanford mentioned, they're so welcoming. They love to learn. They love hearing about UVA students. So I thought that was a really special connection that I got to make, kind of putting myself within the community and working in the community. And it's very important, I think, to, give back to Charlottesville. We're in their space for a certain amount of time, utilizing Charlottesville resources. And you can do a lot of very cool volunteer work through the Madison House. So definitely look into that because there are a lot of opportunities to give back. But yeah, I would just say very important to explore and to connect with those outside of, sometimes it's easy to get stuck in the UVA bubble. So really expanding that is a really important part of the experience.
Anything to add?
I'll be super quick. Charlottesville would not be Charlottesville without UVA. UVA would not be what it is without the city of Charlottesville. Some of my favorite experiences, especially as an upperclassman, was leaving that UVA bubble, getting out into the UVA community. Like Sanford said, going and picking apples at Carter's Mountain, or going to the Rotunda to have a pick, or not the Rotunda, going to Monticello, different Thomas Jefferson building, going to Monticello to have a picnic, right? There are some great local cideries in the area that you can go to once you're of age. Just a lot of stuff going on in the community to get involved in. And Charlottesville is just so beautiful. It's just like, you leave the UVA bubble, UVA itself is beautiful, and then you got in Charlottesville, the downtown mall is so lovely, a lot of great restaurants, things going on. Lampo Pizza, best pizza in the country, in my opinion. There's just a ton to do in the UVA community, but once you get into the Charlottesville community, you can build some really cool relationships with people and with establishments around the place that are really, really lovely. So I'll stop there. Told myself I'd be fast. That was too long. I'm sorry, Josh.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. And I saw a question in the Q&A about transportation. There is a train station that leads you right up to grounds, but it's off grounds, but it leads you right to where there's an extension of off grounds housing, apartments, great food, and that's Main Street. The airport is about a 20-minute drive away. So not too far, but it's a little bit of a drive. So those are your two transportation options as well. And before we go, I just want to quickly ask you, what is your favorite UVA tradition? I'll start with Sanford.
Something I didn't do, I think my kids would say is speaking the lawn, but that's up to you. But my favorite tradition is the good old song that we sing after every time we score a touchdown or after games. So that's my favorite tradition. I love singing it after we won the national championship in 2019 in Minneapolis when I went with my son to the Final Four. My favorite tradition.
Thanks, Sanford. Ava?
I really loved that first snowball fight that we get to have, kind of unofficial, but whenever it snows, for the first time, the students will all come out on the lawn. And my special experience was like we were coming out of COVID and we were all able to gather again, and having that snowball fight and seeing everyone was really great. So I loved that.
Colin?
Too many to count. Favorite, I'm a massive UVA basketball fan as well. And if you know anything about UVA basketball, we pride ourselves on our defense. Tony Bennett, love that man. It's the best. Anyway, so at basketball games, whenever a shot clock violation is forced, aka our defense is so good that the other team is unable to get a shot off in the 30 seconds, the entire crowd gets up on their feet, standing ovation for the team. I think that's just a really unique thing about UVA, that everyone nerds out over a shot clock violation in a basketball game. I think that's just kind of encapsulates UVA in a nutshell.
Perfect. I'll add one more question, curveball. One more piece of advice you want to give to all the students and families on this call. I'll do reverse order. Colin.
Not fair. Say yes. Just say yes. That is my biggest advice, not only for your first week at UVA when things are a little bit overwhelming and you are trying to find your community, figure out your identity, say yes then, but also once you are established, have established your identity community, say yes to new experiences. There are so many things to get involved in, a wealth of opportunities with your professors and classes outside of class. Just say yes.
Ava?
Yeah, sort of following that. I mean, do as much as you can. Looking back, I wish I had gone to like more academic talks, and we have a lot of cool concerts. We have a bunch of games, obviously. So, keep going to the sports games, but really immerse yourself in UVA, because before you know it, you'll be graduating like me, and it's really sad, but do as much as you can, definitely.
And Sanford.
Yeah, I'd say enjoy it. Getting into UVA is a phenomenal accomplishment. And so many times in life, we're rushing back and forth. We don't celebrate the wins. This is a win for your student, for the families, for their communities, and everyone's ever spoken into their lives. So enjoy it, because this moment is fleeting and goes by fast. Enjoy this time, celebrate it, enjoy the experience.
Awesome. Panelists, thank you so much for your time today. You were incredible. I know everyone will benefit from your experience and expertise. You are now free to turn off your camera and microphones now. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. So before we close out today's program, I'd like to direct you to more opportunities to connect with Wahoos in your region. As we mentioned earlier, many of our regional clubs programs are sponsoring local in-person admitted student celebrations in the coming weeks. These will be held April 13th through 29th and are great opportunities for you to meet who's in your area, connect with other admitted students, and learn more about the UVA student experience. You may have already received an email inviting you to one of these events, but you can also see the link in the chat or scan the QR code on your screen to learn more. The Office of Admissions also has some great opportunities for you to connect with UVA as you make your decision. Check your UVA My Portal to find resources such as admitted student tours, or if you're unable to travel this spring, please check out the virtual student experience sessions. This is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and go Hoos. Congratulations.